Welcome to Module 6. This is where we'll learn how to build fully automated processes end to end. Everything you've built so far in this course has had some level of manual effort. You open Claude, paste data, get an output, review it, copy the text, paste it somewhere else, and maybe format it. Even if you're doing Claude Cowork or Claude Code, you're still having to kick the process off every time. Now it works, it lets you think through the process, but it means you have to be there. You have to do something. Now, the API changes that entirely. Now, what is an API? Well, it stands for Application Programming Interface. Now, ignore the jargon. Here's what it does. It lets software talk to other software. When you use Claude in the chat, you're doing the talking through a user interface. When you use the API, a workflow tool like N8N does the talking automatically on a schedule without you. This is the move from manual to full automation. Now let me give you the simple mental model first. In the chat interface, you type a prompt and Claude types back. Through the API, N8N sends a prompt to Claude programmatically. It's as if N8N were typing in the chat window. Claude sends back a response. N8N then does something with that response. That's it. The mechanics are different. The result is the same kind of intelligent response. Think about the daily liquidity briefing from Module 1. You built a prompt that takes a bank file and returns a clean formatted briefing. Right now, to use that prompt, you paste the file, run the prompt, read the output, and send it somewhere. With the API, N8N picks up the bank file, attaches it to your prompt, sends both to Claude via the API, gets the briefing back, formats it, and emails it to the CFO. You don't touch it. Now here's what the API unlocks for Treasury work. First, scheduled runs. Claude processes your bank files at 7:30 a.m. every weekday without you doing anything. You're asleep. The briefing is ready before the team opens Slack. Second, triggered runs. A file drops in a shared folder, the workflow fires immediately. Claude processes it, and an alert goes to your phone before you've even checked your email. This is event-driven. It's not waiting for a schedule. Third, structured outputs. Claude returns a formatted briefing that gets inserted into an email and sent automatically. No copy-paste, no manual formatting. No chance of a typo when you're moving text around. These three capabilities change the game for a Treasury team. Tasks that took 30 minutes every morning now take 30 seconds of setup once. Now the technical part, API keys. An API key is a password that identifies who's making the API call. When N8N calls the Claude API on your behalf, it uses your API key so Anthropic knows whose account to charge and who's making the request. Guard your API key the same way you'd guard a password, maybe even more so. Don't share it. Don't post it in Slack. Don't put it in a public document. If someone gets your API key, they can call the API pretending to be you, and you'll pay every dime of it. You create an API key in your Anthropic account settings. You paste it into N8N once, and N8N stores it securely as a credential. You never paste it again. Now, you don't go to your regular Claude account to do this, and you don't go to the desktop to do this. You're going to go to platform.claude.com. Once you have an account set up, you can just create one with your Gmail. You can just set up your own account with whatever your email is. You're going to come to the dashboard, and this is the Claude console. Now, within this, you can actually do some work. You can build your own agents that you can call. There's a lot of really complex developer-oriented stuff in here. But we're still new to Claude. We're still getting used to all these features, so don't worry about anything except this button, Get API Key. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to click the Get API Key button, and then we're going to come up here and create key. You'll see I have a draft demo N8N key right here. We're going to go up to hit create a key. I'm going to add it into just my regular workspace, and we're going to call this N8N Treasury. We're going to add it. Now, this key is going to come up. And by the way, I'm deleting this key immediately. This will not be useful once you see this. This is your API key. Once you hit this close button, even you can never see it again. It's gone. So make sure that you copy it, you put it somewhere extremely secure, right into N8N or somewhere, some advanced encryption grades password security. That's where I keep some of these if I reuse them, because when I hit close, it's gone. And again, I'm going to come right here and you can watch me delete this. It's gone. Boom. But that's all you have to do. It's here. It's active. It will show you where it is. It will show you when it was last used. You'll see I haven't used this one in 30 days or so. And that's really all there is to it aside from money. Now, anytime you call on this, you're going to use credits. We'll talk about those credits or tokens a little bit more in a second, but you essentially need to maintain a credit balance to pay for those. Now, you can put limits on your API keys to make sure that you don't go over. So you'll see right here, my monthly limit is $100. I can't go over that. I also do prepaid credits, so I can't go over that. But this is what's going to happen. You've also got limits on the number of requests you can make to the bigger tools, unless you have custom rate limits where you can contact sales. But that's something that you'll want to be very cognizant of because it's different than working in chat, Claude, or even Cowork. This is something you want to be very cognizant of because it's different than working in chat, Cowork, or Claude Code, where you'll just hit your daily limit and you can't go on without putting some additional money in, but you're not really paying precisely by token like this. So what are tokens? Well, Claude charges by the token. A token is roughly 3/4 of a standard word, or like I like to think about it, a syllable. A short prompt plus response might cost 1,000 tokens. A longer one might cost 5,000. For the kinds of workflows in this course, the cost per run is typically cents. A month of daily briefings might cost $5 to $10. I mean, the typical Sonnet model, we're talking maybe $5 per million tokens. It's not nothing, but it's not meaningful compared to the time saved. If you're concerned about costs, N8N and Claude let you set spending limits. You can tell N8N to stop calling the API if we hit a certain dollar amount. You can also just hard limit it in Claude. And here's what N8N's role is. N8N is the plumbing. It holds your API key. It knows when to call Claude based on a schedule or trigger. It knows what to send, the prompt plus the data. And it knows what to do with the response. Format it, route it, send it, save it. You configure N8N once. After that, it runs without you. Now let's ground this in the coffee shop. F9 Finance has 3 locations, Astoria, Hell's Kitchen, and Lower Manhattan. Every morning at 7:30 a.m., N8N picks up the day's bank extract. It attaches it to the liquidity briefing prompt you built in Module 1. N8N sends both to Claude via the API with your key. Claude reads the file, processes it against your prompt, and returns a formatted briefing. That briefing gets handed back to N8N. N8N formats it into an email. The subject line, daily liquidity briefing. With the date, the body is in the briefing, and it goes to the CFO, controller, treasurer's inbox, whoever needs it. And if something goes wrong, if the file doesn't arrive, if the API is down, if Claude returns something unexpected, N8N sends you a notification. You're never flying blind, and you know when the workflow fails. That's the API. That's full automation. In the next lesson, we're going to walk through N8N itself. You'll see the interface, the concepts, and how to think about building workflows in it. Then we'll build the 3 automations that matter for Treasury: the daily briefing, the threshold alert, and the compliance check. So N8N is a workflow automation tool, and the name stands for Nodemation. And that's not really important. What's important is what it does. It lets you connect services and automate processes without writing code. Think of it as a visual programming environment where you connect blocks instead of writing lines or Python or JavaScript. Now, I'm going to show you this live, but for now you need to know that each block is called a node, and each node does one thing. A read file node reads a file. A send email node sends an email. An HTTP request node calls an API. You connect them in sequence to build a workflow, and the workflow runs from left to right. You don't need to build code in N8N unless you want to. You simply click and drag. Before we get into the demo, though, a choice: self-hosted or cloud. Self-hosted means you install N8N on your own server, either a computer in your office or a cloud server you rent. You control the infrastructure. Cloud means N8N hosts it for you on their servers, and you access it through a browser. For learning, cloud is easier. You don't have to set up a server. You log in and start building. For production Treasury use, or if you want it to be free, then you want to think about self-hosting. It's a one-time setup, but N8N is free forever in this one-time setup because it's open source. Now, we're going to talk about the minimal cloud and self-hosting, but for the purposes of this course, once you're actually in N8N, all the functionality is exactly the same, whether it's cloud hosted or whether you're doing it yourself. Now, there's 2 different ways to set up N8N. Fastest way, but also the most expensive, is cloud setup. You can go right to N8N's website. They will sell you the entire plan. They'll sell you the software, the cloud hosting. You just sign up. It's ready to go. Very similar to a Power Automate, a Make, or a Zapier, but also comes with the price tag of those tools. It is great for learning and for smaller finance workflows, and it is fast. It's less customizable and it's less scalable. Now, self-hosted, this is what I do. This gives you more control, and bonus, it saves a ton of money. You can run this on your own server or a Docker container. It keeps all finance data in-house, which is a huge win for compliance, and it scales much better for larger sensitive automations because it's on your own server, and you'll make your IT team a lot happier because of the security and controls around having it in your own system. I'm going to walk you step by step through how to set up self-hosting through N8N in 2 different ways. In the first, we're going to do it the completely free way with a couple of extra steps. This is going to involve docking it right on your computer. In the second way, I'm going to show you how for a low amount of money every month, you can self-host N8N. So instead of paying 20, 30, 40, or even 200 a month for their cloud version, you can put it right on your own mini cloud, get all of the benefits while keeping it contained in your space and not signing yourself up for monthly fees. So here is the easy guide to getting started with self-hosting for N8N. So the 2 options we'll be going over today, one is free and harder, and one is a little bit of money and a lot easier. We'll look at both of them just depending on your budget, but I personally do the easier and small amount of money. We're talking literally a couple bucks a month. It's so much faster, but I also want to make sure you know the totally free version because it's great to be able to spend not a dime and get all this automation power. So for option 1, hosting with Docker, we're going to install Docker on our computer. This allows us to plug N8N into essentially a virtual server right on our computer. You could also put it on if you have an actual server, you can use Docker as well. It's great for experimenting and running N8N locally. And then later you can always move it to option 2 or to a server or whatever you need to do there. Option 2, and this is how I have it set up, is hosting on a virtual private server. So you can use a provider like Hostinger, DigitalOcean, or AWS. I personally use Hostinger. It's ideal for production finance workflows that need 24/7 uptime because the server's always running. It doesn't stop if you shut down your laptop. It's very secure. Your data is in a private cloud-based environment, and it lets you schedule jobs, store credentials safely, and scale across a large business while keeping control over the platform. So now let's get started with the totally free version, which is installing with Docker. Now, if you come to N8N's website and you go up to docs, you're going to find an entire section just on self-hosting N8N. Now, everything you need to know to get up and running, I'm going to show you. And if there's anything you specifically need to enter, I'm going to have it down in the description for you. But this is just here as a backup, so I want to make sure you're aware of it and also just really confirm that N8N is set up for self-hosting to the point that they've got documentation right on the website. If you ever do need help on Docker, it's this first one right here, the Docker installation guide. But again, everything you need to know, I'm going to walk you through step by step right now. So the first thing to do is to install Docker if you don't already have it on your computer. To do that, you go to docker.com. It's totally free. We're going to come here and we're going to go to download Docker desktop. Now here you'll need to know what kind of computer you're working with. I think the average finance person, 85% of you are probably going to be on Windows AMD 64. That's the most common. If you're on a PC, you're almost definitely on AMD 64. ARM is most common in non-PC, non-laptop devices, but make sure to check. And then if you're on Apple, it's usually marked on the front of your laptop which one you have. So we're going to go ahead and download for Windows AMD 64. The download will start, we wait for that, and then we run it just like a normal program. Now while that downloads, I'll mention what Docker is. Docker allows you to set up compartments on your computer to run software. It keeps it separate from the rest of your computer so you don't break anything or crash anything, but also it lets the software keep running independently as you restart or reboot your computer, so it's not going to go away. It's like a mini computer in your computer that's going to let you do things like operating N8N. All right, so let's go ahead and run this like a normal installation. I'll skip ahead to the next part. You've all installed software before, just run the prompts and I'll catch you back with Docker desktop open. So we've installed Docker, we've opened Docker, and now it's setting up the engine so we can get working on our N8N setup. So you'll most likely open up on Docker Hub. You could really open anywhere. We're going to use a few of the buttons up here. So the first thing we want to do is we want to go to the volumes. So let's click on volumes, and in volumes, we want to create an N8N installation. So let's go ahead and hit create. And we'll call this data. So this is going to create the volume. This is that mini computer in your computer where it's going to store this separately on your hard drive. So now we've got our data underscore N8N. Our volume is set up and ready. So now with our volume built, we're going to go over to images, and here we're going to search images to run. Now the really great thing is we don't have to go anywhere else and download anything. N8N is available in Docker. So you'll search N8N, you'll see N8N.io, N8N, and we're going to pull this down into our container. So again, you don't need need to go to N8N and download this. It's going to be able to pull right into Docker with its image. Now the poll is in progress. Once this is done, then we'll set up our container. While it downloads, let's get our time zone. I'll put this Wikipedia link to the official time zone names. Scroll down and find your time zone. In my instance, we'll be looking for America/New York because I'm in the Eastern time zone for the United States. All right, here's America, New York, which is the standard one. And make sure you get this phrase exactly. America/New York _. Make sure whatever your time zone identifier is, you get it exactly how it's written. We're going to need that for N8N. So now we've got our image here. We're going to go ahead and run this and get our container set up. So we want to run a new container with N8N. And here's where we need to put in some of those optional settings that I mentioned. So we're going to go ahead and call this N8N. Our host port is going to be 5678. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I'm going to have all this down in the description, so don't worry too much about copying it down right now. Our host path is going to be the name we created when we were doing our volume, so that's going to be N8N_data. And then we're going to point it to the home node for N8N. And then we need to add a couple of variables that N8N requires us to define. So the first one, we'll use that time zone that we got. So we'll pop in generic time zone, and this value is going to be America, New York. That's for me. You'll put in whatever is relevant to you. We're going to do the exact same thing again, referencing the TZ code. So we'll put TZ in there, and then we're going to do the same thing for America, New York. All right, now we're going to do enforce settings file permission. Again, for you, you'll just have to copy and paste this. That's going to be true. We'll do one more. This one is going to be N8N runners, and all of this I'm getting from the N8N documentation, but again, I'll have it down below for you to copy and paste. That's going to be true. All right, now we'll go ahead and run this, again, running it on our little mini computer that we built in Docker. All right, you'll see here that everything is being created. So Docker is creating N8N, it's accessing the image, it's getting everything all set up for us to use. See, the process is still running. And now once you see this message that says editor is now accessible via, this means you can now access via your browser using this link. So I'll go ahead and click this link. So now you're able to access your own N8N instance through your browser. It's pointing to that special mini computer within your computer on your computer, but you're able to access to the browser just like you would with any other instance of N8N. You'll set up your account just like you would on the cloud version, and you're ready to go. So sure, this took a couple of steps, but I really want you to know this because it's really just a little bit of copying and pasting. You follow this video, you do all the steps in order. You're going to have N8N running totally free on your computer. You will not have to spend a dime on this setup ever. Now let's go ahead and move to the next setup, which is using a virtual private server. It's going to save you 60 to 70% over buying it from N8N, but it's going to be set up in a few clicks of the button. So if you really don't want to go through the setup of Docker, now I'll show you how to do it the same way that I do it with a virtual private server. It'll run all the time. It'll cost you just a few bucks a month. You'll save 60 to 70% over doing it through N8N, and it'll be ready in just a few minutes. Now here's how I run N8N, because as I mentioned, if you're using N8N on your computer, well, if you turn your computer off, it's not going to be able to run workflows. And I want to make sure that my workflows can run all the time, even when I'm not actively using them. So while it's great to be able to practice or be able to run some local things on your computer, I want to make sure that my processes can run all the time. So for that, I use a VPS or a virtual private server. Here we are, we're on Hostinger website, hostinger.com, and you'll see right here on the right side of the menu, self-hosted N8N. It is truly a platform that Hostinger supports, and they have dedicated VPS setups that will help you get this rolling in just seconds. Honestly, I found it faster setting up N8N using Hostinger than even setting up N8N on N8N's cloud-based website. Once you're through the payment process, it may take Hostinger 5 to 10 minutes to get you set up, but then you're going to come to your domain and it's going to look just like this. So you'll see here I've got my virtual private server. It's running N8N on the cloud. We'll go into manage, and you'll see here all of the information with N8N running. Again, Hostinger will have this all installed and set up and ready for you to use. You can access it two ways. You can either go directly to this link right here, or you can go to Manage App. Now, if you want to be really fancy, you can point your domain directly to this. So, well, this is my regular domain. I actually have this set up where I can go to n8n.f9finance.com, and I'll come right into my N8N instance because I've moved it to point to my domain. You don't need to be that fancy. Just be aware it's something you can do outside the scope of this video, but there's a lot of great documentation right here on Hostinger for how to do it. And that's really all there is to it. It's up and running. It took a couple of seconds. You have your own N8N n8n instance, and you're ready to go. And again, processes here, if you set them up on a schedule, they'll run all the time, even if your computer's shut down. It doesn't get much easier than that. So this is N8N's website, n8n.io. This is where you can get the paid cloud versions of N8N. It's also where you can download the self-hosted community version. So we look around, we have all kinds of features here. One of the absolute best things on this website is right here under product. We can go to templates, and you're going to find over 6,000 existing workflow automation templates. You can download these, you can pull them straight into your N8N environment, and it's a really great way to either learn. So some people build things like how to build your first AI agent, learn N8N basics, or there's also things you can put into practice in your business, in your job today. So the templates are incredibly powerful. So now whether you've used the self-hosted version or you've gone with the cloud version, you're going to open N8N and it's going to look exactly the same. It's going to look just like this. Now, for such a powerful tool, you might be looking at this and saying, well, this is really basic and simple, but that's the elegance of N8N, that it is that simple. It's not a crazy coding tool. It's really, on the home screen, no more complex than just using Claude chat, but there's all of the power behind this. Now, on this overview screen right here, this is where you're going to see everything you've already built on the workflow tab. So you'll see all of my automations are here. Your credentials, these are your API credentials to connect to other software. You'll see I've got them all set up here. We've got Google Drive, Gmail, Anthropic, Google Sheets. All of the different connections I have are set up here. Remember, we've talked about logs and auditability. This is every single execution. I can go back over time and look through everything. These are the auto refresh ones. I've got variables I can create. I've got variables and data tables. Those are advanced. Those are paid features of N8N, so I'm not going to cover those here, but do know that you can upgrade to those if you want. And then there's a very simple create workflow button to go ahead and start your workflows. Now over on the side, we're in the overview right now, we can go to personal. This is really in this version going to be the same. If you have the cloud version and a team subscription, you can see other people's automations. We can come down to chat, and this allows you to have chats with any of the agents you've built. It's a really cool new feature that they're testing out in beta. And then like we talked about, templates are available down here, and you can also run insights, and that's really as simple as it is. Now, when we go into create a blank workflow, we're going to see a lot more of the functions, but it's still going to retain that simplicity and that drag and drop. Now, up here, this is the canvas, and this is where we're going to build all of our automations. We can zoom in, we can zoom out, we can copy, and this is just the editing field. If I want to look at our runs, I can go to executions. We can see this once we start running things. And then I can go to evaluations, and this will allow me to do multiple tests if I really want to make sure that it's hardened and ready to go. So I'll come back to the editor, and our first step is always going to be that trigger that we've discussed. So we're going to click on our trigger, and then that's going to lead everything else. Now, once I click trigger, all of the different options, all of the different nodes, as we've talked about, are going to come up. Now, a manual trigger, this means that every time I want to run it, I have to come in here and click. Now, that's really not going to be any different than running a Claude code or a Claude cowork. I have to come in here and trigger it. It's useful sometimes if I have complex automations I want to workflow or workshop. That's helpful, but really we're going to focus on ones that can trigger on another event. This one we can trigger on an app event. So if something happens in an app, like something as a field is added to Notion or Airtable, it's automatically going to run. We can run it on a schedule. We can run it on a webhook call. We can run it when a form is submitted. We can have another workflow kick off a workflow. We can have it do a chat message. We can have it when there's an evaluation running, and then there's a few other more complex ways. Now, in our three examples, we're going to use on a schedule. We're going to use when Now in our three workflows, we're going to use on a schedule and we're going to use on a chat message to kick these off. For this first one, just to show you so I can see the rest of them, let's just say we're going to trigger this manually. There's our first node. Now to move around, just hold down Control. You're going to get the little hand instead of the pointer, and you can just move that around however you want. And then you can go ahead and zoom in, zoom out, whatever you need to do with that. You can also click this button and it's just going to fit the entire thing, whatever the zoom level needs to be, it's all going to fit in there. So we can go ahead and do this. And then if you don't hold Control and select, you're just going to select all the different nodes. Now with the trigger in place, we can pull up the rest of the nodes. And at this point, they're all categorized. So the first section of nodes are going to be the AI nodes. And this is where we're going to find our AI agents. This is where we can call all of our different models. This is where we can build in all the kinds of different guardrails and protections. This is where we can build in all the different guardrails and protections for our model. We can also do information extractors, question and answer chains, lots of advanced features. If you can dream it, you can pretty much find it here. Even down here, there's things like embeddings, memory, language models, document loaders, all kinds of great stuff to build out your AI workflows. And again, here's a great thing. Like we talked about with Claude Code, if you have questions on any of this, just pop it into Claude Chat and it will tell you all about it. There's no way I could possibly cover every single thing here. It would completely overwhelm you, and right now you don't even need most of it. We're going to learn these nodes that are critical as we go through the examples, but you can ask anything to AI at any time. There's action in an app. So this is where we can connect to other tools and run things. So all kinds of tools. I believe there's over 500 pre-built connections in here. We've got things, I'm set up with things like Google Sheets, Outlook. There's all kinds of different connections you can do, and you can run stuff right in the app. We have data transformation, so you can add code in here. We've built some of that code we're going to pull over. You can add a date and time. You can set fields that kind of carry through the workflow. And then there's all kinds of filters, duplicates, splitting, aggregating, merging, summarizing, extracting from files, editing images, converting to files, markdowns, XML. If you can think about it, if there's a data transformation that can be done to it, this is exactly where you're going to find it. Now, Flow helps you actually manage the workflow. This is where you're going to find things like filters, if-then statements. You can loop processes if you need to run something multiple times or split it up to batches. You can, again, merge. We saw that on the previous one as well. You can compare data sets to look for changes. Very helpful with day-over-day bank files. You can execute sub-workflows. You can stop an error. Look for all those guardrails we've been talking about. You can switch the routes, or you can wait if something needs a timing. So you think about things like stop an error. That could be none of the data is available. I need to stop my Treasury process. Or it could be I looked for it, the file wasn't there, let me wait an hour and check again before I error. So those are some different options you can do there. If we come back to core, these are going to be kind of the core functionalities of the automations. We've got data tables, HTTP requests that will allow you to make those API calls we've talked about. Webhooks, so you can call a webhook. It's kind of the reverse of an API. It makes this an API. You can call that and it will run. Execution data, you can transfer files up to websites. You can run other actions in your end-to-end. You can do nothing, track time saved, all kinds of different things you can do with the core functions. And then lastly, human review. This is where you're going to have that human in the loop that we want in every AI process. You can talk to humans via any of these tools and then get additional feedback or reviews for things to move forward. And what we're going to be doing is just building our workflow out with different combinations of all of those nodes. So this is the build that started the whole course. In Module 1, you built the prompt. You tested it manually. You took a bank file, pasted it into Claude, and got back a clean, formatted briefing. You learned what a good briefing looks like. You refined the prompt until it was perfect. Now you're connecting it to an automation that runs without you. I'm going to show you this build in end-to-end. Watch the nodes. Watch how they connect. Pay attention to what each one does. And at the end, we'll run it against real data. So on to our first automation. This is going to be our daily liquidity summary. Now let me walk you through high level how this is built, and then we're going to go node by node. So we've got our schedule trigger. This is our liquidity automation that we built earlier in this course that's going to run on a schedule. The edit field is simply setting some definitions about where we need to go to get information. We're storing our information on Google. It will save there automatically, and this will call it automatically. Here we've got a guardrail. If nothing is there, if it's not ready, it's going to send a message saying, hey, this didn't work. If it's good, it's going to go download the file. It'll extract the data. It'll work with some of that code that we wrote. It'll send it to an AI agent supported by Anthropic, and then it's going to send an email with the liquidity summary. Now, again, so we go back to that framework. We've got the trigger. We work with our data and our inputs. We run it through the AI. We output, and then we send or distribute. So that's the flow we're going to see in every single one, just different nodes along the way. Now, let's walk through these builds one by one. So this schedule trigger, this came from our triggers like we saw, and we can run these and test them as we go. I have this set to run every single day at 7 a.m. exactly. I run this step, and we simulated a run at 7 a.m. Of course, this run was on April 29th at 15:04, but we simulated the run so we can keep working through this. Now, this is the clean, readable schema as you see up here. You can look at it in different formats, though. You can also look at it in a table format, nice clean table here. This tends to be how I like to look at it, just a little bit cleaner to read. Or there's JSON, which is the straight code. Again, any questions on JSON or what's going on in the code, you can just copy and paste all of this out right into Claude, and it's going to tell you all about it. But that is our schedule trigger just saying this is going to run every day at 7 a.m. Now we go to our edit fields, and what I'm setting here is I'm just connecting it to the folder in Google Drive. So this is the folder where these files are saved. I'm telling N8N, when you go to my Google Drive, everything's going to be in that folder. What's nice about putting it here is you can have one set node. You can set any of these kind of standard fixed fields, and then they carry through the entire workflow. And if you ever need to change them, if you move folders, if you change sources, you just have to come to this one place to edit it. Now we just have one here, but you could have 20 things being set here, and then you just have one place. It's like having an input sheet on your Excel file. You have one place to go back and make the changes. And this file, you just get this from OneDrive or from Google. You just copy and paste it right out of there and pop it in here. We'll go ahead and execute this node, and it's going to pull up that folder. There we go. Now we'll come to the next node, and here we're going to go to the file folder. We're going to use advanced search, and then this little query string right here, this little query string right here is built by dragging the source folder ID over, and it's going to go look for that source folder ID, and it's going to make sure it's not looking in parent files or trash. We want to go just to that folder, and we want to call back the IDs. And all of this, again, step by step, building out with Claude. So we'll execute that step, and this is saying these are the two files sitting in that folder. And just to show you what it looks like, remember this source folder ID, we're going to come over to Google Drive, and there is that same source folder ID with our bank data sitting in it. So that's all it's doing. It's nothing crazy. It's just pointing us right to the folder where our data is. So we've got that run. There's the two files. See, those are the two files right here. And then we can proceed to our next node. Now this if node, this is saying, if either of the IDs we're looking for do not exist, then stop this. If you don't have all the files you need, stop. We'll execute that. There's nothing in the true branch. Everything worked in the false branch, which means we're good to go. Now, if we went to the true branch, we can follow this, and it's going to send an email simply with the subject line saying, now this is going to send an email to me saying daily liquidity failed and a simple message of data not available. That's all I need to know to say, hey, there wasn't data, my automation didn't run, meaning we have to go help it along. Now I'll come back to this branch, we'll follow it as if it worked, which it did. Here we're saying we're going to download the files. They're going to be the files that we already found. Notice how it's all dynamic, right? We are pointing into a specific folder, but N8N is dynamically calling everything in there so it doesn't miss anything. It's making sure it has everything it needs, and now it's downloading everything it found. We're not telling it what files to look for. We're making it dynamic so it can run in more conditions. So here we're saying if it's a Google Sheet, which it is, So now we're giving some file conversions. We have the operations going to be download. We'll execute this, and it's going to download the files in there for us. All right, there's our two files. Now we're going to extract the data out of those files and put them into a binary field. Again, any questions, I always say go back and ask Claude. This is just an easier way for AI to work with it. So we're going to take that, we're going to execute the step. There we go, there's all the information in there, and then we're going to go to code. Now, all of this code was written by Claude Code in our earlier steps. You don't have to write this. We simply have to copy and paste the code, pop it right in here, and it's going to clean up our data. That's why it was so important we go through all of these steps step by step, because the earlier steps you learned are all helping you build out this end-to-end automation. We're going to execute that code. It's going to process our data. Now we're ready for the AI agent. Now, the AI agents are separate from the model themselves. You always pick just a standard AI agent node, and then you connect it to a model. So you'll see down here, you have to essentially add tools to this. We have a chat model field. We have memory. We can add additional tools to help the AI out, and we can have an output parser if we want the output in exactly the same format. In this, we set up a system prompt. This is the system prompt for the daily liquidity briefing that we wrote earlier. Again, all of this ties together. We're going to go back to Claude. We copy paste it here. This is our system prompt. This has our thresholds. This has all that information we've been working on, and it's ready to go. Then we connect a chat model. In this case, just like in Claude, we're going to use Claude Sonnet 4.6. Now, I've got the Anthropic account set up here, but if you needed to create a new credential, you're going to get that API key that we learned about and practiced on in the last lesson. You're simply going to paste the API key here, hit save, and you're ready to go. It's that easy. You do it once, and then everything else is based on the model you choose, and it interacts directly with your Claude account. Just paste the API key here, hit save, hit update, and you are good to go. It's that easy. APIs are not scary. They're just ready to go. Now I need to go back up to the parent so we can run this. We're going to execute this step. It's going to take the data files and it's going to now run it through the AI tools. So as I execute this node, this is going to be the most complex node we've run so far. It's actually going to intake all of the data we've sent it from the coding, from the cleaned up data. It's going to send that and this system prompt to Claude, and then it's going to come back with the information. So again, instead of chatting, we're just communicating through that API, but we're talking to exactly the same models we've been using in chat. And here is our output. Now again, this will be a little bit cleaner in the table format, but you can see down here is all of the content. It's formatted to go right into an email, so you're seeing some HTML, but the tool went in, it did our entire analysis, and it set up the email for us. Now that email is going to pass along to Gmail. What we're putting here is we're just simply putting in the entire output of the AI tool. We're going to send it. Well, for the test purposes, we'll send it to me. This is going to be our daily liquidity update. The email type is going to be HTML. And again, it's just going to send everything from the output. We'll go ahead and execute this step. The email's been sent. And right here is our daily liquidity update. Now, for some reason, the date's not provided. That's certainly something we can go back and update, but you get the executive summary. We've got the prior day balance references. So we've got our Astoria, Hell's Kitchen, Lower Manhattan. We have the review. There's a data gap that some of the fields are missing from 114. That would certainly be the issue. And there's notes on the data, and then there's next steps. So it's telling us it was able to process some of it, but there's an issue. But this entire email was generated. Again, it looks a little scary over here in this output format in HTML, but we come over here and it's a really nice email. And just like in Claude, you have complete control over this. And that is your daily liquidity summary automation.